How we doing, folks? Well, it should be a bit of fun today. Now, what we're doing first is we're going to make a finial for the Spirograph project, or the Atlantis project, whatever you want to call it. So, you've just seen me get a piece of waste block. It had a tenon on it already, a bit of ash, and we're going to stick to that another piece of ash. Completely different tree. That one I acquired from a gentleman that sold me a lot of yew a long time ago. And I know for a fact that piece of ash has been 12 years seasoned, so it's not going to bend, move, crack, nothing. And it is tough as old boots. So I just super glued it on, plenty of glue, plenty of activator, and it was solid, didn't move. So I don't make finials very often, and I don't have any of the required tooling for it, so we're using the 34-inch 40/40 grind bowl gouge to try and make a tiny little finial, which is a lathe. Oh, I lost a bit of video there where I was carving out the inside of that, but I've just sanded up to 240 grit there. On goes some turquoise green. Which looks blue there, doesn't it, until it dries. And then I put some black in a couple of places as well, just to blend, get a couple of different colour variations. And then the sanding paste went on. And then a liberal coating of shine juice. And then I had to turn down that section there to 6.5mm exactly to fit the hole in the centre of the Atlantis project. Okay, so now it's time to remove all of that epoxy overspill. I won't make you watch all of that, it did take a long time. With the orbital sander starting at 80 grit, and I worked up to 1000 grit just for a laugh. I also used the drill just for a bit of extra efficiency. So I was going backwards and forwards between the drill and the orbital sander. And then just some denatured alcohol, get rid of the dust. Starting to look like a thing, isn't it? Okay, so here comes epoxy pour number 1. A very light blue tint on that one. And I was just doing it in stages. I wanted to see exactly how much epoxy I needed, not used far too much. And this piece has developed a hell of a warp, but it's nothing we can't cope with. So there's epoxy pour number 2, a little bit more blue. And I did wait for a while before I put epoxy pour number 3, and I used 450, 450 and then 300 milliliters, so that's 1.2 liters of resin. And you can see the bow in the piece, but I'm not too concerned about that. It is what it is. At least the epoxy will be flat. And then I used my hairdryer to mix the colours a little bit. I did want a bit of variation in the colour, so I didn't fully mix them, but I just blended out the lines of the third pour a little bit. So now we have to wait for 2 days before we can finish the outside. I actually can't put this piece on the lathe anymore because it's too warped and it scares the hell out of me when it turns, even at the slowest speed. So we'll be finishing it off the lathe. But I think that looks pretty effective now, considering how interesting the making of this project has been. It started to look fairly cool at the end. So one more vid to go and that, my friends, will be finished. Okay folks, so just while I've got the lathe open, I just want to show you a couple of things I've been meaning to do for ages. Apologies for not getting to them sooner. So let's talk about the tailstock for a minute and shimming the bed and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that that bed is, oh, I don't know, I would have said it was welded on, but maybe I'm talking rubbish. Can't see. There's a couple of Allen keys here, isn't there? 1, 2, and another one there. What's that? Don't know what that is. Maybe bolt from the other side. So we might be able to move the bed. In terms of shimming it down here, it's bolted to the floor on these bolts. And it doesn't want to twist, it wants to move. I don't want to shim it over so much as move it. And it's bolted onto the legs up in there, look. So that's a possibility. Right, next thing. Why do I turn backwards on the back of the lathe? Is a question I get asked a lot. Well, this is over the bed. Chuck goes on that way, lathe spins this way. Now take this off, move it round to the other side of the lathe. It's got 2 threads in it, this insert. It goes on both directions. Get it on properly. There we go. So now, because this motor only spins one way, it only spins this way, like this. So if you're working on this side of the lathe, you're turning backwards. You're working on this side of the lathe, you're turning forwards. And that's because this motor is old and single phase and doesn't spin backwards. There's no reverse on it anywhere. Rotary switch fuse. That's just on off. I don't even think that's wired in. I think that was replaced with this unit for on off. So hopefully that's answered your question. But again, going back to this bed, I don't know. I'm reluctant to take it off because I don't want to make the problem worse. But maybe those Allen key bolts there give us a bit of play. I don't know. Here's the tailstock. Here's tailstock. Now, it's loose at the minute. It's a bit of play. When I tighten it up, that's solid. It doesn't twist, it doesn't move. If we look down there, there's no slot there, is there? Not that I can see. So I don't... And this is a Morse taper fitting with its own bearing, and there's no play in that. That's new, this is old. That fits in here, that doesn't move. So I can't see why this is almost a quarter inch too far that way. Yeah, so hopefully, let's look at the back. That bit, please. See, there's no play in that. So, answers on a postcard, please, as to what I can do to move this point this way. Because this bed, mate, is solid. You ain't shimming that. This was made in the 1950s or the 1960s when they built things properly. You ain't moving that. Not with a shim. So, answers on a postcard. Alrighty, so that is a piece of woodworm, and there's some wood around the woodworm holes. I'm not sure what type of wood it is, but it's more hole than wood. And I just thought we'd try and make something out of it, just to give that bit of wood a life for a little bit longer. There's not much left, to be honest. It's mostly holes, but we're going to see if we can make a flower pot out of it. Needless to say, the bowl gouge didn't even know there was any wood there. It turned super easy. And I think this project, start to finish, took about 45 minutes. But it was a bit of fun today. I didn't know if I'd find any decent wood in the centre, but I didn't. It's completely riddled with woodworm all the way through. So I wasn't going to try and make this anything spectacular. Just a nice flower pot type shape. That was really descriptive there, wasn't it? So when I was cutting in that direction, the tear out was unbelievably bad. I just thought I'd try it, and then I had to redo everything I'd just done straight back in the other direction where the tear out was, I could live with it. But then we went on to sanding with the 80 grit pad, and I sanded up to 600 grit. Now I could blow some of the dust out of those holes, but not all of it. So in the end, what I did is I blew out what I could, and then I used a lot of cellulose sanding sealer, and then sanded that back all the way up again to 600 grit, and then an obscene amount of shine juice. There we go, that looks interesting, doesn't it? So we're on to the hollowing, which again, I was done hollowing in 10 minutes. 15 minutes tops. Super easy, super soft. Had to take a bit of care when thinning down the walls because I didn't know whether this piece was just going to fly apart on me. Very little wood left holding it together. So it's about ½ inch thick all the way down, 3/8 maybe. There's a little bit of a recurve on the inside, so the transition at the bottom was hard work, so I ended up back hollowing most of the bottom of it. So I started my sanding on the inside at 40 grit because it was pretty rough, to be honest. A lot of tear out, so I sanded that with 40 grit, and I went up to 240 grit on the inside. You're never going to see the inside. And then I put a lot of finish on the inside, which came straight out through the woodworm holes all over me, which was fun. And there we go. that's just to give that bit of wood a little bit of extra life. I think it looks quite effective, really. You can tell it's been eaten by something. Definitely. I left that top surface just natural, the way it came. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. And if you do have any suggestions on what I can do about the lathe bed, I'd be very interested to hear about those. And as ever, I'll leave you with the glamour shots. And if you want to check out my website, it's www.willmakeseverything.com and www.patreon.com/willmakeseverything. And thanks for all my new subscribers. Thanks for following along. And I'll see you on tomorrow's video. Take it easy, folks. Cheers.